Hello and welcome to part 3 of this Unity integration. Now hopefully by this point you are at the point where your project is working, where if we load up an advert, it is working. So hopefully you're at this point. If you're not and the test is not working for you, I do recommend going back and just double checking that it is working, because the rest of this video is on the presumption that the integration has worked, and I don't want you to get so far to realize it's not actually working. So yes, so moving on now, we're going to go into and add in the additional steps for iOS and Android to start off with. So now these steps are there for if you want to release on iOS, and also for Android to target API level 31 and above. So for Android, it's actually really straightforward and really quite easy. So what we're going to want to do is, if we go into if we go back into our Unity project, go on to edit and the project settings. Nope, sorry, build settings is what I want, I think. Build settings. No, sorry, it is player settings. In the next section is here, we want a custom main manifest, and then also a custom Gradle properties template. We want a checkbox on both of those. Then if we click X on there, X on here, we then go back to our integration step list, and we've done all these. Android. Additional steps for Android. Perfecto, here we are. So, first off, we need to add a permission to apps updating the API level to 31. We need to declare a Google Play Services normal permission in the manifest files as follows. So we just copy that, head on back over into our project file, our project folder, click on assets. We're then going to want to go into plugins, click on Android. We now have this Android manifest file, which was generated in our build settings, player settings. It was generated by clicking the custom manifest. Then also the properties template is also there as well. But first off, what we're going to want to do is just open this manifest file. Go away. Now, between the end of this manifest and the application starting, this is where we need to put our user's permission. Now, that is all we need to do for that step. Now, if you were using Unity 2020 and above, which if you're not, I probably recommend you updating it, then we just need to add in this line of code here. So if we go back to our plugins Android folder, scroll on down until you find Gradle template.properties. We're then just going to want to open that up in an editor. I'm just going to use Notepad because it's easy. Paste that under additional properties, press save, and that is the additional steps for iOS done. Now, what we're going to want to do is just very quickly hop over into our iOS development platform to be able to perform the additional steps for iOS. Hi guys, and we're now in the Mac operating system in order to get the iOS additional settings done. So first thing we need to do is make sure CocoaPods is installed. So we're going to go to Assets, Mobile Dependency Manager, and then the iOS Resolver, and install CocoaPods. So quite simply put, make sure you are in the iOS build. We're then going to click on Assets and Mobile Dependency Resolver, iOS Resolver, and install CocoaPods. Now, if it's already installed, it will tell you the fact that there is an installation already detected. So that is absolutely fantastic, and we can move on to the next step. So the next step is all of the additional settings. Now, where it says this one is here, if you're using Unity 5.6, then you need to make sure that the ad support framework is installed. However, though, we're just going to move on because it should automatically come in play anyway. So the SKA add network support, we need to add this. So it's telling us to select the info.plist in the project manager in Xcode. So if we go into our Unity hub, reveal in the finder, go into it, and then we're just going to search for it here. So info.plist into my project. We're then going to open that with Xcode, and happy days. So this is the info file which we are going to need to add to. So click the add button beside a key in the property list editor and hit return. So the property list is here. There's a little plus button just in this area just here. We'll click on that. We then get the drop down come up here. So we're going to copy that. We're then going to move back into here and rename the app category that's just been generated into SKA add network items, and this is going to become an array. So if we go into this one here, we can see choose array from the product menu in the type column. It then says to create a dictionary item, and below it a single item, a single string item. I believe that's supposed to say string item. Enter name that. So if we go and back to here with this little arrow pointing downwards, we can then click the plus button again, change this to a dictionary, and then create another item which is going to be called a string, and that's going to be the identifier with the key value like so. That's going to be a string with a value in there, copy and pasted like that. So that is that first little bit done. This is just if you want to import it in using code, but I find it easier doing it this way. So then we've got the universal scan reporting. So again at the info list, clicking the add button in the property list editor and press return. Add the key name NS advertising la-di-da-da, and that needs to be a string which is going to have that URL written in. So if we go back up to the property list here, click the plus button again. We want it to be a string. We've already copied across the name, and then when we hit over to value, we want to copy that URL. Now you will notice that the name we've given it is different to what we copied. That's just it recognizing it and linking it straight up to what it wants. So lastly but not least, we've got the app transport security settings. So again, in the info list, we need to create a dictionary called the NS app transport security, and make sure you add this dictionary on the top level key. So what that just means is that it is at the top of the top of here. So we go back into the information property list. We're going to create. So we're going to create that. We're going to paste in the name we just copied, and we're going to change that type to a dictionary, which is done automatically for us. And you'll see there as well, it's also changed the name slightly. We're then going to create another one just inside it. So again, make sure the drop down arrow is selected and press the plus button. And we're going to call this NS allow arbitrary loads, which is going to be that one just there. And of course the value here is going to be changed to yes. Make sure you do not have, alright, let's delete that. And because it's right up at the top, that is on the top level key. So that is it for the additional settings. That's all we need to do. So you can now save that and close that down. So I'm going to jump back over onto Windows and continue with the rest of the tutorial. Right there, welcome back to Windows. So now we have the integration and the additional steps done. That's for the Android API level 31 and just the additional steps for iOS that you need. So now we actually need to initialize the script. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new script, new C# script, and I'm just going to call this whatever I'd like. So iron source script, just go with that. I'm also just going to create a new game object and call it the same as the script. Just how I like to do this, script, like so. And then I'm just going to whack this under the game object. So now then, what we're going to want to do is if we load this up in our preferred text editor, mine's Visual Studio, we are now going to actually initialize and set up the project. So whilst that's loaded, I'm going to head back to our additional steps just here. Sorry, no, our Unity plugin integration, where we're then going to want to shoot all the way down onto step 6, initializing the add units. So what we're going to want to do is pass this application state. This just tells the script whether the application has been paused or not. So here we go. Then I'll whack this one just underneath the update one. We're actually going to get rid of the update. I'm just going to very quickly organize my folder as accordingly. So we're going to do a private void so we're going to do a private void and we're going to close one on enable. Like so. So we're going to have the on enable. We've got the void just there, and then I'm going to create a comments. So we're going to go with banner callbacks. We're also going to go with custom font size callbacks, and then we've also got the rewarded callbacks. Now these callbacks, although aren't necessarily essential, you can pick and choose. I'm going to be putting all of them in there because it's handy to have when it comes to either diagnosing an issue or being able to have much more ability to and control over what happens when certain aspects happen during, like for example, banner one. Someone wants to click it, you can pause everything. So yeah, so that is where we're gonna start. But if we go back to here, we now want to initialize the adapter. So there are two ways to do it, as stated here. You can do it by specifying the exact add units that you want. So whether that be the rewarded video, the interstitial, the offer wall, or the banner ones. Or you can just integrate all of them at once. Now, if you're only running banner, or only running interstitial, or maybe running two, then I recommend doing it the singular way, where you call in the ones which you do. In my case, I'm just going to be calling in all of them. So we're going to copy that in. And we're going to whack this one in the start. Now, we do need to put in our app key. So I'm going to call it app key. And just up here, I'm going to create an if statement using a hashtag. Now, what it does is it just does it within the Unity if Unity Android. We're going to do one with string. Okay, make sure it is a string, because the init there requires a string field. We're just going to do. Should have it empty now, and then we're going to do if Unity iOS. Then that's going to be a string app key equals. So now swell, and make sure you always do an endif to end it. Now what will happen is if you are in a if you're in an Android platform such as an Android phone, then it will load this app key in. If you're in an iOS platform, then it will load in this app key just here, which will then be used on start to initialize the script. So that is calling in, but we need to add in a onComplete listener, which is this one just here. So this first line here is just going to be, we're going to whack this in there. It will then, actually no, we're going to whack this one in the on enable. So essentially once this is run, this on enable, this then becomes enabled and active. So we're gonna, on the SDK initialization complete event, we then need to add in this callback here. So what will happen is once this is run, so once it's completed, it will then run this functions here, which is going to be a callback, which is just placed just there. So normally if you are, for example, running ads and you're running ads from offset, banner ads, then you would probably naturally load in your banner ads from this point here. But we'll go through that with the banner ads. We are linking it to a button, but hey. Right, one last thing we need to do prior to the integration being complete. If we go back to our iron source document just here, so we go back to our iron source, we need to add in the app key. Now it's pretty much everywhere, so you got the app key there. The way I do it though is on a dashboard, and then ULP Android. I always use to make sure we've got the Android and the iOS one here. There we go. So next up, you've got to verify your integration. Now this step you don't actually have to do. However, though, it is useful to make sure that your, I'm going to write this one in the onComplete event actually. This is very useful so you can see which adapters are in alongside the versions and make sure the fact they've been verified and they are working correctly. Again, useful for testing. Now, this brings us on to the end of part 3, I believe. Yep, so this brings us on to the end of part 3. And that is the script is now initialized. So now I'm going to press play here. We shouldn't get any errors. There we go then. So the fact it says regenerate with Unity editor, that's actually a good sign. That means that within the code, it knows it is actually loading in the scripts, so we know the fact that that is working. And the fact it says unsupported platform agent there is perfect. So in the next one, we're going to be loading in the banner ad implementation. And then in episode 5, we're going to be doing the interstitial. And then number 6, we're going to be doing the rewarded ads. I've done it this way, so if you only want to load in the banner and the interstitial, then you've only got 2 videos to watch. Otherwise, you're having to skip through and trying to find the exact point in the video. So yeah, so let's go. And yeah, look forward to seeing you in the next one. Whichever one that may be. Now stick around for part 7 though, because in part 7 we will be individually testing the integrations. We'll be able to individually test Unity, as well as the iron source, and if you add in any other components, you can specifically test those, and I'll show you how to do that. So yeah, look forward to seeing you in the next one.